Lesson 36, multiplication and division of rational expressions. A rational expression is simply a mathematical problem written in fractional form. Let's start with multiplication of rational expressions. There are 3 steps to solving multiplication of rational expressions. The same 3 steps are also going to be used in division with one additional step. Step 1, factor each trinomial into binomial pairs. Factor each trinomial into binomial pairs. Step 2, cross cancel like terms. Cross cancel like terms. In step 3, multiply to find the solution. Step 1 is to factor each trinomial into binomial pairs. Step 2 is to cross cancel like terms. And step 3 is to multiply to find the solution. Let's do a few examples. Example 1. We have x squared plus x minus 12 over x squared minus x minus 20 times x squared plus 2x minus 35 over x squared plus 9x plus 14. Step 1 is to factor each trinomial into binomial pairs. Okay? So this is where we have our 2 sets of parentheses. We find out what times our first term gives me x squared. Well, that would be x. So we put x in each of the first terms. Now I need to find what 2 numbers will multiply to give me 12, but will add or subtract to give me 1. Factors of 12 that multiply to get factors of 12 that multiply to give me 12, but add or subtract to give me 1. That would be 3 and 4. So 3 and 4 are going to be in our second binomial pairs. Now we just need to look at our sign. We have a positive in our middle term and a negative in our last term, which means that one of our signs is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. The positive term, because it's the middle term, goes with our bigger number. So 4 is positive and 3 is negative. We're going to go on continuing to factor each binomial pair in this way. You need to go ahead and pause the video and factor each term. Okay, now that you have factored each term, let's check and see if we got the same thing. When we factored x squared minus x minus 20, we should have gotten x minus 5 times x plus 4. When we factored x squared plus 2x minus 35, we should have gotten x minus 5 times x plus 7. And when we factored x squared plus 9x plus 14, we should have gotten x plus 7 times x plus 2. Alright, so step 1 has been completed. We have factored each trinomial to binomial pairs. Step 2, we need to cross cancel like terms. So we need to look and we need to figure out which of these terms are like. That means they have the same numbers as well as the same signs. So if we take a look, first of all, we have an x minus 5 in the lower left term and an x minus 5 in the upper right term. So we can cross cancel those terms because they are alike. We also have an x plus 4 in the top term on the left and an x plus 4 on the bottom term on the left. We can cross cancel those terms because they are alike. And we also have an x plus 7 on the top right term and an x plus 7 on the bottom right term. So we can cross cancel those because those are alike. We have cross canceled all like terms, so our final step, step 3, is to multiply to find the solution. Because we've cross canceled each term on the top except for x minus 3, that is going to be our solution on our numerator. And because we've cross canceled every term except for x plus 2 in the denominator, x plus 2 is going to be our denominator term. X minus 3 over x plus 2 is the final answer. Our next example. We have x squared minus 6x plus 9 over x squared plus 5x minus 24 times x squared minus x minus 72 over x squared minus 5x plus 6. Go ahead and pause the video now and work out this problem completely. In just a moment, hit play to check your answer. Now hopefully you have found a solution to this problem, so let's check and see. When we factored x squared minus 6x plus 9, our first terms were x, terms that multiply to give me 9, or add or subtract to give me 6 would be 3. And they're both going to be negative. On the bottom, x squared plus 5x minus 24, our first terms are x. Terms that multiply to give me 24, but add or subtract to give me 5 would be 8 and 3. 8 is going to be positive, 3 is going to be negative. When we factor x squared minus x minus 72, the first terms are going to be x. We're looking for terms that multiply to give me 72, but add or subtract to give me 8. Or excuse me, add or subtract to give me 1. That would be 8 and 9. 9 is going to be negative, 8 is going to be positive. And we factor x squared minus 5x plus 6. First term is going to be x. We're looking for numbers that multiply to give me 6, but add or subtract to give me 5. That would be 3 and 2, and both are going to be negative. Step 1 has been completed. Now we need to cross cancel like terms. So, we can cross cancel x minus 3 with this x minus 3 on the bottom. We can also cross cancel this x minus 3 with the one on the bottom right. We can cross cancel x minus 8, or excuse me, x plus 8. Once every term has been cross canceled, we multiply to give me a solution that is x minus 9 over x minus 2. That is multiplication of rational expressions. If you have any questions or need to go over these examples again, hit replay when the video is finished or go ahead and rewind. We're going to go on to division of rational expressions. Because these problems are written in fraction form, we need to keep in mind our fraction rules when we're dealing with the multiplication, or excuse me, with the division of these rational expressions. As I said previously, we're going to follow the same 3 steps that we did when we multiplied. Step 1, to factor each trinomial pair into binomial pairs. Step 2, because we are dealing with fractions, when we divide fractions, flip the second term and change the sign to multiplication. So we're going to flip the second term and change the sign to multiplication. Step 3, now we can cross cancel like terms. And step 4, multiply to find a solution. Step 1, factor each trinomial pair into binomial pairs. Step 2, flip the second term and change the sign to multiplication. Step 3, cross cancel like terms. And step 4, multiply to find the solution. Let's do some examples. Example 1, x squared minus 6x plus 8 over x squared plus 3x minus 28 divided by x squared minus 2x minus 15 over x squared plus 2x minus 35. Step 1 is to go ahead and factor each trinomial to binomial pair. So we're going to factor. Go ahead and pause the video and factor on your own. Now that you factored each trinomial on their own, let's see what we ended up with. X squared minus 6x plus 8 should have factored to be x minus 4 times x minus 2. X squared plus 3x minus 28 should have factored to be x plus 7 times x minus 4. X squared minus 2x plus minus 15 should have factored to be x minus 5, x plus 3, and x squared plus 2x minus 35 should have factored to be x plus 7 times x minus 5. Step 2, we want to go ahead and flip our second term and change our sign to multiplication. So we're going to flip both of these terms. So we can rewrite the first one. We're going to flip everything on the second side. So on the top, we're going to have x plus 7 times x plus minus 5. And on the bottom, we're going to have x minus 5 times x plus 3. Step 3, we cross cancel like terms. We can cross cancel x minus 4, x plus 7, and x minus 5. And step 4 is to multiply to find the solution. The only thing left on the top is x minus 2. And the only thing on the bottom is x plus 3. So that is our solution to the problem. Let's try another example. Example 2. We have x squared plus x minus 6 over x cubed minus 2x squared minus 35x divided by x plus 3 over x squared minus 7x. This one is a little different than the ones you've seen before. Before we can factor the trinomials, we need to factor like terms out of the trinomial stuff. Let's go ahead and start with x squared plus x minus 6. When we factor this, we can factor it into two binomials. First term is going to be x because x times x gives me x squared. Now I want to look and see if I can find a term that multiplies to give me 6 but adds or subtracts to give me 1. That term would be 3 and 2. 3 is going to be positive, 2 is going to be negative. Now, in the denominator, notice that there's an x in each term. So we can factor an x out. When we factor x out, we're left with x squared minus 2x minus 35. This trinomial can be factored down to a binomial pair. So we're going to factor this trinomial down. So when we factor it, we're actually left with x and then 2 binomial pairs. X is the first term. Factors that multiply to give me 35, but add or subtract to give me 2 would be 7 and 5. 7 is going to be negative, 5 is going to be positive. On the top, x plus 3 is already as factors as it's going to get. We can't simplify that anymore. On the denominator, we have x squared minus 7x. Notice that each of these terms has an x in it, so we're going to factor that x out. When we factor x out, we're left with x minus 7. X minus 7 cannot be simplified anymore, so we're done with step 2 at this point. The next step is to flip the second term and change the sign to multiplication. So we can rewrite our first term. And we're going to flip the second term. So on the top, we have x times x minus 7. And in the denominator, we have x plus 3. Finally, we cross-cancel those things that are alike. So we can cross-cancel x plus 3. We can cross-cancel x minus 7. But we can also get rid of this x. And finally, we want to multiply through to give me a solution. On the top, we're left with x minus 2. And in the bottom, we're left with x plus 5. That is the end of lesson 36. If you have any questions or need to go over it again, hit replay or rewind.